happen, but January is already over, we are into February, and I need to tell you about the books that I read last month. I got off to quite a strong start. I read 7 books in the first 3 weeks, but then for the 4th week I didn't read anything. So in my mind I like to imagine this with a couple more books to plump it out, because as you can see a lot of them are quite thin. The first book I read was a Beauty and the Beast retelling set in Japan. This is Barefoot on the Wind by Zoe Marriott. It's about a girl called Hannah who grows up compensating for the death of her elder brother by becoming the strongest hunter in the village. And the village itself is cursed because it's surrounded on all sides by an enchanted wood, and those who venture too far into that wood are taken by the beast. And it's been that way for like 100 years, so no one knows the world beyond, basically. One day something happens to Hannah's father and she has to go into the wood to find the beast. And that's where the story essentially happens. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars because I did find the romance a little bit lacking. I respect that Zoe Marriott didn't want to make the romance the be-all and end-all of the story, but at the same time, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so it kind of is the be-all and end-all, and I would have liked a little bit more overt romance. But my biggest problem, I think, was the world building. And yet I think I might be being unfair, because when Hannah is in the village, she's trapped in the village. When she's in the wood, she's trapped in the wood. And she doesn't know the world beyond that, so how much world building can there be? Especially since, yeah, it is a first-person narrative. So maybe I'm being unfair, but in my heart, this sits at 3 out of 5 stars. But I did enjoy it. The next one I read was Sweet Home by Carys Bray. This is a collection of short stories around the theme of home, quite tenuously sometimes, but I gave this collection 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. There were quite a lot of stories about parenthood, and the tone of those was pretty ambivalent, so I'm not sure what the message was there. But there was one story that I really loved. I found it quite tongue-in-cheek, but believable, because in it, this foreign lady moves into a British town and she starts to build a house out of gingerbread, and the locals complain about everything, but one of the things they find to complain about is the fact that she should be using a good old British recipe like Victoria sandwich to build her house. And I can just imagine that happening, to be honest. There's also a story about a woman who shops for babies in a supermarket aisle, and babies are sold like products, so you can buy the new Maya, and the box on the Maya will say her expected lifespan, which is generally less if raised in Glasgow and considerably less if raised in non-EU countries, and it will give her character qualities. I just found that really fun. And there was one story that really lingered, actually, and it's about this widow. You see her at the beginning of the story hanging out her laundry in her garden, and then one of her bras gets stranded on the top of a hedge, and her memories flash back to her mastectomy and this very poignant moment between her and her deceased husband. And it's romantic in a way that has nothing to do with moonlit dances or red roses. He was just a very decent man who did this sweet thing, and it's just this fairly mundane moment in time, but those are the ones that have an impact on us, and I just felt that it was very true and poignant and bittersweet. And yeah, I recommend that one. The next was another recommendation from Jen Campbell, as was Sweet Home. It's Let Them Eat Chaos by Kate Tempest. This is a long performance poem, and I first heard Jen read a passage from this, and I really loved the rhythm of it. I loved the language of it. That hasn't changed. And when I got to that particular section in this, I knew how it needed to go. Like, even if I hadn't heard Jen reading it, I would have known, like, just from the words on the page, how I needed to say it. Sorry about that, my camera cut out. As I was saying, there were so many moments when I was trying to read this aloud that I just couldn't figure out what tempo and what rhythm I should be following, because that tempo and rhythm changes throughout, which I didn't realize at first. So as a printed and bound article, I kind of give this 3 out of 5 stars, but then when I listened to Kate Tempest actually perform it, it was easily a 4.5 out of 5 for me. It is a very powerful poem. It's about the need for humankind to sit up and take note of the changes occurring around the world, and also just to be kinder to your fellow man. It was good. but this was not the medium for me, and I kind of regret buying it because this wasn't cheap. Next, I read Lovesick by Jessie Cave. Jessie Cave is an actress who, I forget what character she played in Harry Potter. I think she was Ron's first girlfriend, the one who went a little bit weird on him. This is essentially, I don't think you can call it a graphic novel, it's more like a series of graphic vignettes. And as you can see from her artwork, this is the kind of art you can imagine you did with felt tip pens at school. They are not accomplished in any way, and in fact the text often has spelling mistakes. And when I started reading this, again, I regretted buying it because the first half was not really anything special, and I just thought it was another example of mediocrity being celebrated. But there were pages that I really enjoyed. This is fairly obviously aimed at girls, I would say, and there's this scene here which I really liked, and it's just a section of all different girls of all different colours just pointing to the other girl saying, I want to be her, 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 I want to be her. We all want to be someone else, basically. And as you would expect from the title, Lovesick, a lot of the stories are about love. So this scene here I definitely recognise. This girl here is saying, I was getting over him, then he liked 2 of my selfies. What does, it doesn't mean anything. I've had that scene before. And then this one here, so much truth. What did I think about before I thought about him all the time? I still don't know the answer. And so now you've met all 88 versions of myself, which one would you like me to be? So true. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I think this would actually be quite a nice Valentine's Day gift, maybe just among friends if you have any single girlfriends. I did enjoy that, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it considering my impressions of it at the very beginning. The next book has kind of put me into a bit of a mental meltdown, because you might remember that one of my top 5 books of 2016 was Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur, and I stand by that because the impact it had on me at the time was fairly dramatic. I wrote my own poetry on the back of this. It made poetry very accessible, quite easy, very friendly. I loved it. However, since reading this one, I've taken my rating for this one down from 5 stars to 4 stars. This one I've given 3 out of 5 stars because I still don't think it is as good as Milk and Honey. And when I first read this one, I thought 4 out of 5 stars because I did enjoy it. Then I was on Goodreads and I read, what's she called? Emily May's review of it. And her review starts, she hits enter after every word, and her review starts, hitting enter after every word does not make it poetry. And then she argued her case so well that I really got what she was saying, and in fact I agreed. She quotes a passage of poetry from Leonard Cohen and then a passage of poetry from this, and she compares them and she says, is this what it's come to? Is this modern poetry? And since I read that, I've kind of decided to call this sort of stuff Insta poetry, because it's the sort of thing that you take photographs of because it looks gorgeous. It's that kind of typographic thing. This, you know, black words on white paper with lots of empty space. You can do typographic arrangements, and that makes it even more Instagrammable. So, for example, there's one where the text is arranged in a heart shape, which is very pretty. Where is it? There. You know, you can imagine taking a picture of that around Valentine's Day, maybe. And just the cover itself, it's made to be photographed. And it's kind of reminded me of how I feel about some modern art. Like if an artist takes a paintbrush and flicks it at a canvas, I don't consider that art, because where is the skill? And this is essentially words, such as you would not remark on in the middle of a conversation. You wouldn't remark on if you read them in someone's notebook. She won't stop haunting me, my ghost. He won't stop hunting me, my ghost too. I mean, maybe this is a subject for a longer video. Let me say the stuff that I did like, because don't get me wrong. Oh, by the way, this is The Princess Saves Herself in this one by Amanda Lovelace. And Amanda Lovelace has clearly led a life. A lot has happened in her life. She's gone through a lot of deaths in the family, one of which was her mother's death. And there's one in here that really struck me because it's about the last book that her mother read or was reading when she died, and that she will now never finish. And it reminded me of when my dad passed away. The last book I remember him ever telling me about was Rob Roy, and every time I saw him I would say, "So have you met Rob Roy yet?" And he would say, "No, no," and that went on for I think like 140 pages before he ever met Rob Roy. And I made my decision then that I was never going to die in the middle of a bad book. I would always just put down a book if I wasn't enjoying it. And then there are ones like this, which I can just feel the authenticity of it. So it says, "Sticks and stones never broke my bones, but words made me starve myself until you could see all of them." And it does talk quite a lot about bullying in this. And honestly, the wonderful thing about this style of modern poetry is that it is so accessible that any of us can write it, and I do think that writing is cathartic. So part of me is like, yes, let's celebrate this. But then when I see the ratings on Goodreads, and they are often beyond the ratings of what I consider to be proper high-level poetry, it's like maybe we need to be enlightened, because this is not all that poetry is and can be. But at the same time, I know how I feel about the snobbishness around literary fiction versus genre fiction. So, I'm going to stop talking about it. Let me know in the comments if any of that has sparked any thoughts in you, because I need to formulate my thoughts and I need to just move on. Next is another collection of short stories. This is The Rental Heart by Kirsty Logan. And I read this one because I knew of a story in it about a man who rents mechanical hearts, so that his own heart never has to be broken again. And I really liked that idea, and I did really enjoy the execution in this. But actually my favourite turned out to be the story of a girl who has antlers and a boy who has a tiger's tail, and the girl is determined never to be friends with the boy because she sort of doesn't like the way that people are assuming that they're going to be together because of their commonalities. I really enjoyed that. I would love to see that expanded on. But overall this was not as good for me as Sweet Home, although there were quite a few quite sexy stories in this. There was a story of this lady of quite a grand household carrying on with quite a number of ladies' maids, and that was quite a sexy story. And there was a love triangle between a lonely woman, a coin-operated boy, and the man who ran the shop, the rental shop for that boy. But I didn't really understand the ending. So that was 3.5 out of 5 stars. The final book I read is called Kit by Marina Fiorato. This is an adult historical fiction, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I also filmed a proper review video for it, which I will link down below if you're interested in hearing more. This is the story of Kit, who at the beginning of this novel is newly married to a man called Richard, and she is running an ale house. Then Richard disappears, having been pressed into the army, and Kit is forced to cut off her hair and disguise herself as a boy in order to follow him and find him. She has many adventures as a dragoon in the army. She fights a duel, she accepts the paternity of a child that isn't hers, and she develops feelings for Captain Ross. All this time she's pretending to be a man by means of padded waist, flattened bosom, and also a silver penis. This book kind of has two halves, the first where she is the pretty dragoon, and the second half where she is something else. It's definitely a page turner, it's pretty adventurous, a lot happens. I just wish a little bit more romantic things had happened, because as I said, she does develop feelings for Captain Ross, and love does drive all the decision making in this book. I just found that there was a lack of proper romantic moments, and it made me feel a bit cheated, to be honest, but I did enjoy it, although I could have done without the epilogue. So If you're looking for a good historical fiction, this is really well written and I do recommend it, and it helps that it's based on a real-life Dublin woman called Kit Kavanagh, who was born in 1667 and did in fact serve for years in disguise in the army. So those are the 7 books I read in January. Let me know what you read in the comments down below, and let me know for sure if you've read any of these or are interested in reading them. I'll feel better about February once I've got 1 book at least under my belt, because I can already feel things running away from me and me getting sidetracked into other things after such a strong start to the year reading wise. That was a really long sentence. Thanks very much for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I will hopefully see you then. Bye!